All right, guys, on today's show, we have a repeat guest. If you know what that means, it means it's someone important. We got a high-level entrepreneur on here today. He started his real estate career as a general contractor, rehabbing houses for other investors. He said, look what they're doing. I can do it better, and he has. He went on to create financial freedom at an early age as a cash flow investor. He's doing a lot of high-end rehabs right now. He's also an active turnkey investor, which we'll explain what that is here in a second. He created the Good Success Mastermind, helping investors all around the country improve their skills as entrepreneurs. He's a speaker, travels around the same circuit that I do. Let me introduce you to our rock star guest, Tom Olson. How you doing, Tom? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Connor, how are you doing? Thank you so much for having me back on the show. I really do appreciate all that you do, and I love your the family and the community that you've created. So I appreciate you let me come back on your show.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're just grateful to have you on here. We love getting people like you on here. I hear you speak all the time, and I go to these events, and there's lots of speakers. And when Tom speaks, guys, I'm in the room listening. So let's go ahead and talk about where you're from and kind of dig in here about the start of your career, because you started out as a general contractor doing a bunch of rehabs for other investors.
Yeah, actually, so in 2006, I actually started in new construction. Okay. So I started in construction when I was 12 years old. And 2006, if you guys know new construction, 2006 was really our demise. It wasn't 2008 when everybody talks about the crash. It was really 2006. So in 2006, I found myself just going, I went from making six figures, working my butt off, but to all of a sudden literally making $20,000 a year. And I had family, I had a wife and kids, and we had moved into a nice new house in a great neighborhood. About a year or two before that, 2004. And we had to do something. So basically, I found out that, work was going to start getting slow. And so I decided to start making some phone calls. And I made a phone call to this one guy, and the guy gave me one paint job. And so I actually got the paint job done and completed, and I did it on time and on budget. And it was like the craziest thing that the general contractor had never seen, I guess, a subcontractor actually get a job done on time and on budget. And I'll tell you, from the 60 projects we're doing right now, it's very hard to get that done on time and on budget. So I understand where he was coming from. But one thing led to another, and really started working with investors with this guy, ended up partnering with that guy within the next 6 months. And then 6 months after that, so a year into this, doing fix and flips or doing rehabs for investors, found myself, owning that rehab company for investors. And basically this was my deal. So my deal was, I went to the investors as a contractor and I said, how about this? How about I find you the deal, I rehab it, I help you get it listed with a rock star realtor that I know. And the only thing I want out of it is I want to get to do the rehab, So how many of you guys out there would, if you found a contractor that would find you the deals, that would help you get it listed, it wouldn't matter where it was at. My investors were not from my area. I had one from Kentucky, one from California, one from Tennessee. And you don't normally hear that. You normally hear New York or California. You don't normally hear other people from Tennessee or Kentucky, but that's where my investors were from. I was working with 3 investors at the time, and we just, I end up doing that about 100 times for other investors within those between 2006 and 2011. And the whole time, I was just happy to be able to work and be able to put food on the table. But what I didn't realize is that God the whole time was leading me and was teaching me all the things that I would need to know now. And a lot of times people wonder how I know what I know. And I'm like, it's not just that I learned it. I read it in a book someday. I experienced this day in and day out for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And it really helped me get to where I am today. I'm not saying I'm a super successful guy and everything I say you should listen to. All I'm saying is that I think that we're all like that in some way, shape, or form. Every part of our life is kind of like a leading up to the next part of our life. Even you, Connor, you talk about your story about being on the online casino, blackjack, or not blackjack, poker. And, there's things that you learned then that you can use now in life and negotiating and learning people's body language and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how I got my start in real estate. I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 12 years old. And it kind of like made me think to myself, I know I can do this. This is really where I wanted to end up as far as in real estate. And now, now the way I look at real estate is it's just a tool to be able to help other people, because that's where I'm really all about, is working in my life to have so I can give to those in need. And that can be with my time or my talent or my treasure. It's not just all about money. So does that help you where I came from?
Yeah. So guys, you know, Tom's humble. He is a successful guy, and I'll speak for him. You should listen to what he has to say. And it's important to point out that Tom's got a story similar to mine. A lot of investors, a lot of entrepreneurs, you see them kind of have this the story of falling hard and getting back up and kind of rising out of the ashes like a phoenix, right? And I think it's something, I don't know what you think, Tom, when you get knocked down like that and you lose everything, it creates a situation where it's kind of sink or swim, right? Or you kind of burn the ships and you have to go forward. And you see a lot of people come and build something great out of a time where they thought was a curse that turns into a blessing for them. So I see this quite often with different entrepreneurs as I meet them around the country.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important to look at the last crash in real estate and look at 2006, 2008, 2009. Look at all that era. And I want to network with three types of people. I want to network with people who went through the crash and burned, and I want to learn from their mistakes. And I don't want to do what they did. I also want to learn from people. So another story about me, in 2005, actually it was 2007, I had an opportunity myself to buy it was a lot of 10 houses that were already rented. And you know, if you look at them, the cash flow was okay in today's standards, but back then it was really good. To get $200 a property back then was really, really good, and people were really excited about that. Today, you know, I'm looking for about $300 a property right now.
Right.
But back then, you know, $200 was a good amount of money per property, but there was just something that just didn't feel right about the whole deal. And, you know, and I was one of the people that kind of avoided the whole last market crash. I really wasn't affected other than the fact that I did move my family to another really super cheap house. And I was trying to be really resourceful during that time period. And I still own that house that I had just moved into in that nice neighborhood that I was talking about. And I keep it as a rental. But so I want to network with three different types of people. I want to network with people that crashed and burned, and I want to learn from their mistakes. I want to network with the people that avoided it, you know, and understand how they avoided it. And then I also want to really network with people who took advantage of the last market cycle. And I'll tell you, that was something I didn't get to participate in. And I wish I would have been able to. I know there's so many houses right now that are in my head that I just think to myself, oh, if I would have just kept that house instead of, I mean, we wholesaled 1,000 houses from 2009 to 2014-ish. And wholesaling that many houses and thinking like how many of those I wish I would have kept for an extra 3 or 4 years. And really, like, just for me, the one piece I was missing at that point was to have private money just sitting there waiting, you know, and so that's why I think you need to network with all those three types of people: the people that crashed and burned, learn from their mistakes; the people that avoided it, and try to figure out, you know, how do I see these signs, and how do I get that gut feeling, and I trust my gut, and then how do I take advantage of the next market cycle, because it is going to happen at some point in time. I don't think that we're there now. I know people think we're in a bubble. I think we're just at the very beginning stages. There's not enough inventory on the market right now to tell me that there's a bubble. And honestly, like, if you look at the other major cycle downturn and upturns, like, prices went up 200 to 400% from their lows, and we haven't seen that yet. So, and again, like, I know I'm contrarian when it comes to that. There's so many people out there, even really people I follow and trust and like, that are telling me that we're going to crash in 2018, and I'm like, there has to be supply and demand, and right now there's not enough supply to be able to tell me that we're there yet.
Right.
Yes, definitely the high end of the market is starting to see some softening, but I mean, that's just natural. So, anyways, I know I got off on a rabbit trail there, but but that's definitely what I would say.
I mean, I agree completely. I'm on the same side of the belief system you are on this. I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, at least not until after 2020. Our high-end market, I've been talking about that a little bit as well, but my market's a little bit different. They've overbuilt for that 350K on up price point, but anything that's 200, 225K or less in my market, we're getting multiple offers day one still, because there's just so many buyers out there. You got someone who has one single college-educated income job coming out of college can afford that house, or two minimum wage earners, a husband and wife couple, can afford to get a mortgage on a property like that, and the banks are just still lending. So we haven't seen a slowdown there. Let's go ahead and talk about how you transitioned from being a GC or running the contracting company into being a more of an investor. It's important to understand, guys, he told you a second ago that his business grew from doing what he said he was going to do and going the extra mile. And this is how you build any business. You just do what you say you're going to do on time, like you said, in the condition that you said you're going to do it, and people are going to continue hiring you. So for you young investors out there, young entrepreneurs, take that to heart. So you went in there and you started transitioning your model to raising money and doing your own deals, right? Because you were doing pretty good making money rehabbing other people's houses, but you switched to having this active turnkey model that a lot of people know you for, right? So let's talk about that a little bit here real quick.
Sure. So so in 2012, I actually did hook up with a guy named Wayne Schaefer, and I was partnered with him for a while. Me and him did part ways August of last year, and it was a good parting. It was mutual. I think it'll probably be better for him and better for me to part ways. And I learned a lot from him. I hope he learned a lot from me, and I think that we both, helped each other personally. But really, so I wholesaled a lot of houses. I was mainly a wholesaler. And I still had my construction business. There was times in my construction business where I was like, man, this is just so much, work for somebody. I let it go in 2012. I completely let it go. And I told my team, I'm like, you know what, sink or swim, like this is going to be on you. And that was one of those things that kind of, again, it's one of those things I'll tell you, God helped me through. He helped me keep that. And he was conditioning me along the way, because one of the hardest things that entrepreneurs have to do is let go. And it almost forced me to let go, because I knew a lot of my money was being made in wholesaling at the time. But I knew also in the back of my head that keeping that contracting business at some point in time, and you have to understand, in the market cycles, there's different times when different things are going to work really well. So sometimes wholesaling is going to be great. And I'm going to tell you guys, wholesaling is not always a really good model, but some parts of the cycle, I'm not going to say it's not a good model. It's always a good model, but I think that sometimes it's easier to take advantage of wholesaling. Sometimes in the market cycle, it's easier to take advantage of fix and flip. When the market's crashing, that's not a time to be in fix and flip. I'm sorry. There's certain times where lending, I think, is a great time to be in lending. And I think there's other times where it's not necessarily a good time to be in lending. And even in lending, there's short-term and long-term, and there's different times you want to be in short-term and long-term. So I look at the whole market cycle as, I want to be able to do anything that's good in any part of that market cycle. And I know that sometimes that gets us off on rabbit trails, and it makes me do things and be a little bit unfocused at times. But I want to put people in my business that are good at every single thing. I want to always have a focus on acquisitions. I always want to focus on raising private money. And right for me right now, like I don't even know if deals need to be funded. I have a funding coordinator in my office that funds all my deals, and she knows the 100 people that are my private lenders that need deals, and when they need deals, and when they have money to redeploy. And every single time we pay off a lender, we're asking them, hey, do you want to redeploy your money? And we're tracking that so we know. So I have momentum in acquiring, in funding, and then rehab. If you don't have your own rehab business, you're completely at the mercy of contractors, right? I mean, I know, Connor, you've even had, issues with contractors, and you're probably about ready just to pull your hair out right now.
That's why it sticks up all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, it doesn't matter who I talk to. I mean, I talked to a billionaire a year and a half ago, and it was about a half a year ago, six months ago, that was at the Think Realty event, and he was having problems with, everybody right now is having problems with contractors. And I'm not going to say I'm not having problems, but I have the resources to be able to get projects done where other people are quitting fixing and flipping right now, when it's probably one of the best times to fix and flip. Why? Because they can't get the freaking contracting work done in the property. I just talked to a lady 2 or 3 days ago, and she's like, I am completely giving up on fixing and flipping right now because I can't get a contractor. She just told me about her last project, and it took her over a year to get it done, and she's still buttoning up things. So I knew that, and I'll be honest with you, out of the 150 projects we've done in the last year and a half, there's been 2 or 3 projects that for me have even taken a year. So I'm not saying that everything is always peachy clean. Things do happen, and sometimes, especially cities nowadays, are getting involved and really kind of, pushing their weight around and acting like, they can just tell you to do whatever they want whenever they want. And it is. I actually think that is one of the problems is the government oversight and all the restrictions that we're getting putting on building and such. I'm not saying there shouldn't be that, and I believe that you ought to use licensed guys and you ought to do things right and up to code. But sometimes when you have 3 different inspectors and they all have a different interpretation of what the code is, I mean, come on, seriously. So actually, I think that's part of the reason why the market itself can't really go anywhere right now, because we can't build as many new properties as we were building. In 2006, I think we're building 100,000 new building permits per month were being pulled, and right now I think it's like 30 to 40,000.
Right.
So those properties aren't being put on there. So, anyways, I mean, I just think that everybody needs to have momentum in all those different parts of their business, and rehabbing, and then sales. Right now, sales is easy. So honestly, right now is a great time to be a realtor. Honestly, it really is. Now it's harder to find deals to be able to sell, but as soon as they get listed, guess what? Like, they're sold. Right. But it's not a good time to be an REO listing realtor. It's kind of funny. Like, if you look in the realting business, all the realtors back in 2008, the ones that like really were awesome in 2008, 2009, were which realtors? It was the realtors that were doing the REOs. They had the HUD listings. They had all the Fannie Mae listings. Now those realtors are trying to reinvent themselves and going back to retail market or whatever. So right. I always want to position myself that I can be good and I can be knowledgeable in any aspect of the market. So that way I can take advantage of any particular time in that market cycle. Because there's a time and a place to take advantage of every single part of the cycle.
Right. So what do you think right now at the top of the market you should probably avoid, rehabs, lending, and new construction, and focus on wholesaling and keeping rentals? Actually, I think,
I still am I'm in the Midwest. Okay. So you have to understand my market's different than Dallas, Texas. Dallas has been going up really heavy for the last couple of years, but I mean, honestly, if you look at the population that's coming here, it could still be going up.
Right.
I can't tell you that this is not a good time to buy rentals. I really do still think it's a good time to buy rentals. I actually think this is a little bit contrary to my normal stance on things, but the C- neighborhoods, the ones that haven't come back up, like your Detroit, Michigans, like your Flint, Michigans, like honestly, Gary, Indiana, where I'm from, St. Louis, Missouri, Cleveland, Columbus, Ohio's probably already come up a little bit, but I can still see Columbus. I can still see Columbus doubling from where the levels are now. Like those markets have so much more to go because there's nowhere. Everybody's building $300,000 to $400,000 houses. That's the biggest primary target for new builder constructions right now. So I think there's opportunities in 2 different places. Number one, those C- neighborhoods, the ones that I was kind of against selling to investors 2 or 3 years ago. I actually think there's a great opportunity. Now, there is more risk in that opportunity because, yes, it could go right up and it could go right back down a little bit. But I'm just going to tell you, I think that there's going to be areas that are going to double and triple in price because there's a vacuum and there's no houses in between that $100,000 and $300,000 mark. After you get over $300,000, it kind of changes. But those houses that are sub 100 right now, that are like 70 to 100, those houses I think have a huge opportunity in the next 2 or 3 years to really have a ridiculous appreciation. And I know I'm speculating, and that's not me as a typical investor, but I'm just telling you, like when you have to pay attention to supply and demand, and when there's no supply in that 120 range, like things are going to have to vacuum into that 120 to 175 range.
Right. I mean, I think it's okay to speculate, but you got to understand, like you have to speculate when the numbers work. When you buy the property, you need to buy it where the numbers work as is, but assuming it's going to go up. Don't just buy a house, at full market value or negative equity, expecting it to go up because you like the area and you're buying on emotion, not facts and reason. Okay, so let's touch on.
Absolutely. And that even goes back to like, so if you're buying a rental that's 70, 80 grand and it's like renting for 11 or $1,200, like just that's, even if you never sold it, like it would still be an amazing, amazing deal. But like what happens is 3 years, that $70,000 house is worth 180. Do you think I'm going to start thinking about, should I sell that house in 3 or 5 years? Absolutely.
Right.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Don't buy like California houses thinking that they're going to like just go crazy. They could, that's great. But I mean, look at the Midwest, Southeast type properties, still cash flow that you're still happy with the cash flow.
Right. So let's go back and touch a little bit on the city here, because you probably dealt with the city quite a bit over your years. This is something that a lot of people don't deal with quite a bit. Like even right now, guys, don't let them bully you around. We're dealing with the house that the inspector would not let us go and green tag everything until they want us to dig this deep French drain trench from all the way around the house, run it all the way around out to the street, and it's going to cost $2,500. They fought me on it forever, and what I did was I just rented a Bobcat and I leveled the backyard for a few $100, right? So you got to get creative. You can get around these things. So I basically saved over $2,000 to do it this way. So what type of problems are you seeing regularly, or that you would assume a new investor is going to see on these rehabs dealing with the city? Are you seeing anything that they're really, at least in your market, kind of pressing down on or tightening up on?
Boy, I could go. I mean, the biggest problems that we've had is honestly getting utilities turned on. You know, they literally will not give you a green tag to get utilities turned on until, like, we have a house where we almost had to do the entire rehab during the middle of winter, you know, and we have negative 30-degree winter. So we had to like do the entire rehab with generators and with propane heat, because they just wouldn't give us the go ahead on the utilities, and they wanted they wanted all the electric upgraded, which is like, some of the stuff is fine. Like I get it. Most of the stuff is already in our scope of work. But it just takes us so much extra time and so much extra dealing with different contractors. Cause now like the contractor didn't bid it that way. The contractor didn't bid to have to do it that way and have to wait for the house to warm up to be able to do drywall. And I mean, it just makes everything worse. I mean, and the biggest things I have issues with is like when one inspector comes out and says, okay, this is where you need to put your GFIs, and then we do it, the whole house was done, and then at the end, like the guy that comes in at the end is like, oh no, you have to move your GFIs over here, like just stupid things that just like drag your projects on, and you have to. I mean, there's just no rhyme or reason, and it's not in the code book. I mean, those are the things that really drive me crazy. I was going to tell you, if you're getting a French drain done for $2,500, tell me who that guy is, because I think my French drains are like, 2 or 3 times that. So, but we have a lot more water issues up in and we have basements. See, it's a little different when you have basements than if you have all slabs or crawl spaces like you guys do down here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just, they're getting too intrusive, I think, especially in these small secondary markets up north of Dallas. The little areas are a lot more difficult to deal with these inspectors. And guys, you just have to pull your permits, because if you go do a rehab and you didn't pull permits on things, for one, it's not safe for the end buyer. What happens if we had a house actually burned down one time. I mean, obviously we pulled permits and had it green tagged multiple times, but things happen. They can lock they can lock the water meter off. You can't sell it on the back end if you're doing a retail fix and flip, because you can't have an inspection done. So guys, just do it right from the get go. Now, I mean, I even had one, Tom, where just recently where the city, there's a small city where the city does things for people who are in financial trouble, and they did the whole entire electric on this house, put the brand new meter, they wired everything, and we bought it. And 2 years later, to pass the inspection, they made me rewire the entire house, even though they had it right there in their computer that they were the ones that wired it, and it cost me like $3,300 to rewire this little house. And I was just like, this is just ridiculous. Like, why would I even have to deal with this? But that's what you're going to deal with, guys. If you're fixing houses, go down and meet the city, especially in these small areas, get to know them. It can really help to have a good relationship there. So
yeah, I don't know how it is in Texas, but again, like in Illinois, for instance, it's super easy to get a general contractor's license. You just have to have insurance. You just have to have some experience, and you have to know what you're doing to a certain degree. But in my area, I have 4 or 5 towns where you have to actually take a test to be able to pull a general contractor's license in that town. And then they only want to do the test like every month or something. So, I mean, when you ask me like what's the biggest problem you might run into, like for me that's my biggest problem is like there's a certain couple cities where we don't, or they just change it where you didn't used to have to take a test and now you have to take a test, and now there's only like 10 general contractors literally licensed in the entire town,
right.
Waiting for people to take their test. And sometimes I know there's a project that we're working on right now where we had to actually wait for somebody to take their test in order for us to in Portage, Indiana, for instance, so now it's kind of like if we're going to do a property in that city again, we kind of have to make sure that we have the general contractor ready to go before we actually buy the property. It's not that way all the time, and you shouldn't be thinking to yourself, that's one thing that's going to hold you back. Like if you're trying to put an offer on a house and you're like, I know this is a great deal, but like in the back end, if it's going to cost you 70 or 80 grand for a $40,000 or $50,000 rehab, it's not a good deal anymore.
Right.
So just be careful about that stuff.
So I know you do a lot of studying. You're big into self-development. You look into history. Have you looked into this as far as statistics goes on the decline or the slide off of tradesmen like electricians and plumbers and some of these guys in this type of trade? Has this been going on over the past 10 years? It seems like people are not going into these professions as much.
Yeah, and even the kids. See, like that's when I was in high school. If somebody were to get on the speakerphone, right? I mean, so I went to high school in the early 90s. So if somebody would be on the speakerphone and be like, I have a guy, he's looking for people to help him out on Saturday, and he's looking for workers. There'd be like a line of 20 guys down there at the office at the end of the day saying, hey, what's that phone number? How can I line up? Now it's like, these kids sometimes, and honestly, like that's partly our fault as parents, not training our kids to be good stewards and to understand that you have to work and work hard for a living. I think it's partly that, but partly like it's kind of like construction's being looked at as like a secondary type of job, and it's not like as important and it doesn't make as much money.
Right.
But what happens when there's no contractors? I think that's part of the issue, is just the whole, like we talk about millennials and that whole generation. I have a ton of millennials that work for me that I think are amazing, but I mean, there is a little bit of that going on. I think that's part of the problem. The other part of the problem is in 2008, 2009, all the jobs like got sucked away.
Right.
When we as a country went from 100,000 new building permits per month down to, I think we were down like around 5,000 or 10,000 permits for new builds per month as a country. Like, just think of how many jobs got lost. So all those people went into manufacturing. They went back to school. I mean, some of of my buddies that used to work with me are now nurses or now another profession. So we have lost a ton of the people that were in construction for the long haul. So now you don't have the fathers teaching their kids because like they all lost, and then all the kids that saw their dads in construction at the time, have a negative taste in their mouth about their dad being in construction because he lost his job and that. So it's not all just the contractor's fault that there is no contractors.
Right.
And if you have to think of yourself, put yourself in their shoes, a lot of times, we as investors have a bad rap when it comes to contractors, and we just have to be honest about the situation, because a lot of investors are freaking sleazeballs and they're scumbags and they don't freaking pay their contractors. Right. So like, and you just have to make sure that you can prove to yourself, to the contractor, that you're a professional. And something that we do is we do like a contracting event for them. We try to bring them coffee and donuts, not on every single job, but like once a month or once every 2 months, go out and do something nice for your contractors. We do a contracting event where we actually teach them something every single year. So, and I normally give them away a book. I normally teach them what I'm all about to help them understand the culture that we're trying to portray in our business and help them be a part of our team. If you can't even do some postings on Facebook, to just do some things to help bring them into your culture and help them understand that they're part of your team. But you have to put yourself in their shoes. If somebody else is going to pay them 4 or 5 times what you're willing to pay them, and there's a chance that you're not going to pay them, well, guess what? They're going to go to the other person. So they've got to know. I think the biggest things that we can offer them is, number one, consistent work, because that's the one thing that contractors definitely fear, is that they're not going to have consistent work. Right. They don't have to market. My contractors that just like all they do is work for me. And I'm not saying all of my contractors are like this, but some of the contractors that I love are the ones that only work for me, and that they know as soon as they're done with this job, there's another job coming. So they don't have to spend any money on marketing costs. They know they're going to get paid every single Friday as long as the work was done the week before and their invoice is in by Sunday night. And our project coordinators go out on Tuesday or Wednesday and check the job and make sure that everything on that list that was supposed to be done in that phase was done that week. They get paid every single week. So that all those, and whatever it is that you can offer, like that's what we offer our contractors, but you've got to figure out what you can offer your contractor,
right?
And make sure that they know it, and make sure that they know all the things that you're doing for them, and really do care about them, because I think that's the thing that's from the past. 10, 15 years ago, honestly, investors as a whole didn't care about the contractors. It was like, you're just a spoke in my wheel. And you have to understand, like, they're people too, and those relationships are just as valuable to me. A good contractor is just as valuable to me, and sometimes can even be more valuable to me than a lender. You know, we treat our lenders with this great respect, and we should. Don't get me wrong. Whoever holds the gold holds the rules, right? But like at the same point, like we should treat our contractors one who's going to end up finishing the project for us with just as much respect and treat them just as well as we treat our lenders.
Right. So like my opinion is if you find a contractor that does what they say they're going to do on time, that's the most valuable part of your business, at least if you're doing fix and flips. I mean, when the market turns and money's harder to get, having lenders is going to be very vital to your business. But right now, good contractors can really boost your business to the next level. Also, it's good, like you said, to kind of have a symbiotic relationship where you are both building your business alongside each other. You can help these contractors build their business, and you can build your business, and it's just a win-win altogether. So I know last time we had you on here, we were talking about a lot of people are impressed with how y'all generate your leads. Y'all put in like 150,000 offers, and y'all are doing a deal a day. Now that y'all have had a reset with your business, what is it that y'all are doing now? You're still doing similar types of things to generate leads, mass offers on HUD Home MLS, or have you changed your marketing strategies, or what's working for y'all right now?
Absolutely. And back then we were bidding, and that was when I was partners with Wayne. We were putting in, I think, like thousands of offers a day. And most of these were on HUD Home Store when HUD Home Store was crazy. And we were also like over 5 states. So we were wholesaling over all 5 states. We were sending people out from our home office every single week into all these areas to check all the houses every single week. And, for me, like I had to take a look at my business, and I think everybody should do this as well. I took a look at my business and I said, where's my profit coming from? And this is kind of the 80-20 rule. 80% of your profit normally comes from 20% of your business. And that was completely 100% true for us. So 80% of our profit was coming from our local area. And it was kind of like, well, why in the world are we doing all this other work all around all these other areas when all of our profit is right here? And then, what's funny is 20% of our overhead was caused from our local market as well. And it was astounding and amazing. Like, so if I were to just eliminate all these other activities that were outside my local area and just focus on doing less deals, I would be like so much more profitable. And I think right now is definitely that time where you have to go deep. The deals are still there, guys. Trust me. There are deals in Dallas, Fort Worth. There are deals everywhere in every market in the country. You just have to figure out how to go deeper now instead of going wide. When there's like just REOs all over the place, going wide is an amazing business strategy. But right now, like I would say, focus and drill down on those markets that that you have all these other contacts in, the contractors and realtors and things that are going to actually make you money. So for us, as far as like finding deals right now, we're putting in a whole lot less offers. The other thing I learned as well is I studied a lot of other companies. And for the most part, there are some sweet spots in how many deals you're doing relative to your profit. So what I found is that most guys that are doing around 40 to 60 deals, that's kind of like a step. So and that's a great profitability type mark. And then from between 50 and 100, you're kind of like you have to get up to 100 in order to make more money. You have to put more people in place. You have to put more systems in place. And I believe business is a stair step. You have to step and wait for your business to catch up to yourself, and then step and wait for your business to catch up to yourself. And what I found, what we did, and the mistake we made was we went straight up. We were growing at 40% a year. I think we did 47 deals, and then 90 something deals, and then 130, and then 187, and then 301 deals. And we just went straight up, and we found out that we made the same amount of money doing 140 something deals as we did doing 300 deals. And it was because we had so much waste and so many mistakes that were made, and we grew too fast. So I believe that there is a great sweet spot in what we do between 100 and 150 deals. And you need the least amount of resources to make the maximum amount of money. Now, I'm not saying I'm never going to go out and do 300 deals again, but I'm not going to do it until I have the resources and I can be resourceful enough and have the people in place to be able to do that many deals efficiently.
Right.
Because what you find yourself in that trap. Well, I've got to get this deal done, but then you just end up, you find yourself in two traps. Either you get into a deal that takes you way too long, and you end up spending way too much money, and then you have lender costs, and it's a compound effect negatively towards you, and you end up losing 60 grand on a deal like we did during that period of time. Or you find yourself chasing deals that you shouldn't have chased because you're trying to hit a number.
Right.
And I'm all for goals. Don't get me wrong, but they need to be smart goals, and they need to be goals that are going to be able to give you the profit that you want. So what I can tell you is between that 100 to 150 deal mark, there is a sweet spot in there for everybody's company. And then I think in order to go to the next step, next level, it takes a whole nother set of resources and a whole nother set of steps. So for us, as far as acquiring goes, my team is actually at the tax sale today. So we've never done tax sale properties, but now we're doing tax sales. We're buying houses on sheriff sales. We are buying more direct to seller, but we're not spending money. And I'm not saying I'm never going to, but at least in my market, it wasn't worth it for me to do like tons of postcards and tons of, marketing money out there. I'd rather spend the money on the people in my office to actually go out and knock on doors and be like really focused on this is the house I want. And like, even if you have to show up at the door, like it's so your money is so much better spent on people that are actually doing the activities, in my opinion, than trying to send out all these postcards to all these people every single month. At least in my market, what I will tell you is if you're in the higher end market, like $300,000 and plus, I think it's more worth it. The guys that I know I know a guy in California, he's flipping about 250 flips in California with an average profit of about 40 grand a piece. He's doing killer with mailings. And when you're in that kind of market and you spend $2,500 per converted lead, it's a good deal. When you're making 40 grand a pop on every single deal and you're doing that many, it makes sense. But when you're only making 10 or 15 or 20, that $2,500 is a lot higher percentage of that money. So I'm just telling you, in different markets, different things we're going to work in different parts of the cycle. And right now, from my market, I am posting a lot on Facebook. We're actually getting probably one or two Facebook, for sale by owner type leads per month. I should say leads, converted leads, one per month. We're doing a lot of wholesaler deals where a lot of the newbie wholesalers are coming in and giving us their deals. And honestly, I've trained probably the best wholesaler in my market other than myself. I feel like I trained him. I bought his first 8 deals from him, and they're great. I mean, they have an awesome meetup group with over 100 guys a month that come and show up because they didn't like our local RIA, which our local RIA is hasn't been that good for a while. But they do a great job with that, and I kudos to them. And I won't say that I taught them everything they know. I won't be like that, but I bought their first 7 or 8 deals I bought from them. So they knew I was a buyer, and they went out and found deals for me specifically, basically. And then now they're trying to sell deals higher than what I'm willing to pay. So that's how it works, right?
It always happens.
and I can't blame them. I think these guys are good guys. I really do. So just giving as much as you can to the local market. I know one of our good friends, Walter Warford, that's the same way he is. I think 100% of his deals come from other wholesalers that he taught how to go out and find deals.
Right. And
that's really how we're getting most of our deals. We're actually right now, we're only putting in about 100 to 150 offers a week. And I think we are getting on average about 1 to 2 deals per week right now. No, our goal is 3. We're getting about between 2 and 3 on average per week. And I think we have about 68 deals in our pipeline right now.
Right. So it's important to understand it, guys. If you're just a wholesaler right now, you need to work on creating your acquisition company as well and get good at raising money, because as cost of leads rise, it's getting harder and harder, as it goes from, my market right now, most people are spending over $4,000 to generate a lead. And as that goes up from a few years ago, where it's like $2,000, $3,000, and $4,000, it's going up. And even I heard home investors are spending like $6,000, $7,000 to get a lead that they monetize.
Holy cow.
You can't wholesale it and make that work. You have to do heavy volume. So guys, you got to figure out how to raise the money or get into the flipping, because when you're paying $6,000 for a $10,000 wholesale deal versus $6,000 for a $30,000 flip, that's going to be the only way you're going to stay competitive. How has your business been restructured? So I know y'all had like 30 plus employees. How does your business look now, so that some of these solopreneurs out there that want to scale to doing 100, 150 deals a year, how big an office do they need? What's the main type of help or employee that you would have in your office to help them scale that point? Acquisition guys, or who's?
Gosh.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, right now I still currently have 26 employees, but the problem you have to understand is only 2 of those people are really acquisitions people, and then I have one person who's over buy and sell as a whole. So he's also the salesperson on the back end, because sales is easy right now. Sales at some point is hard, and right now sales is easy. So I don't need a ton of people in sales on outside sales. I need inside. So I've got 2 people on inside sales, and then my manager for that helps for that. I believe, and I think one of the places that people get tripped up on, which is a place that I would say that I'm probably strong on, is finance. I have got 2 amazing finance managers that are just complete rock stars. And then I have a rock star bookkeeper as well. But I don't think most people need that. You have to understand, my company consists of 4 companies. So I have a buy and sell company. I have a rehab, construction management company, which we do rehabs for ourselves, yes, but we also do rehabs for other investors and other people, and even in retail type construction. We'll do $5 million in retail. In construction this year. We did about 4.8 last year in construction. So like that company alone has, I think, 10 employees, and we're hiring 2 or 3 or 4 more this week. So like when I say 26, well, like 10 of them are construction. You don't necessarily have to have 10 people in construction to be able to do 100 deals. That's just how I'm set up. Right. If you just want to hire all general contractors, you probably only need 3 or 4. And then I have a property management company as well. Like if you're just going to fix and flip or just do wholesale, you don't need a property management company, but I'm a turnkey operator. So I also sell turnkey rental properties to my investors. Right. And I think you have to have that property management piece. So I have 3 people that work for me in that company. And then I have a marketing director. I've got an education director. So that way for good success, our education company, he's the one that's really the operations manager, make sure that happens for operations. Right. And then I have an integrator, or what I call her my general manager, Christina, who runs the whole, who's really like, she's in charge of the whole thing. She's the one that even tells me no to a certain degree. Like I bring an idea to her and she says either, yes, we can do this. Okay, I'll get it done. Or no, not now. Tom, wait until like this kind of happens in our market, or this kind of happens in our business before we can do that. Or, we compromise or whatever. We always get on the same page. So, but I'm glad you brought that point up, because I believe that the best way to be able to find out what that looks like for you is to go visit other people's operations. And it's part of how I got to where I'm at. I'll tell you, one of the biggest, most important things that I've ever done is I went out to an event with Memphis Invest. And I said, okay, if I'm going to get and at the time they were doing 400 deals a year. And I think now they're doing 1,400 deals a year off of like 7 or 8 markets. And I thought to myself, if I want to get to where they are at, I need to go see what their operation looks like. And I need to understand the makeup. And it's kind of like seeing is believing. And it's right. Like, okay, now I get it. Okay, you have to have a finance. And like one of the things I learned from them back then that I'm just now implementing in my business now, when you get to a certain point, you have to have customer service and you have to have customer care. Most of the people that are getting into fixing and flipping, they don't even think about that, or they're just wholesaling. They don't even think about that. But when you own or manage a bunch of rental properties for people and you want to have repeat customers, and you don't want to spend a bunch of money on marketing, well, guess what? Your best leverage point is to care about your customer and have the same customer repeat over and over and over again. So, and the best way to do that is by sending them cards and sending them Christmas gifts and remembering them on their birthday and all those things that, like, we love it. We're like, oh my goodness, like my dentist just sent me a Christmas present or a card for my birthday or whatever. Like, so those are the things that we're implementing now in our business. Right. But I would tell you, like, the number one the best leverage point you can do is to go see other people's operations, see what they do, see what the people makeup and the department makeup looks like in their business, and it's not going to be the exact same in your business, but at least you can see what it looks like. Right.
That's incredibly important what he just told you guys there. So decide what you want, slow things down, turn the TV off, sit in private, decide what you want, and then study what you want. So if you want to be a successful real estate investment company that's doing a lot of deals, go study investment companies that are doing lots of deals. If you want to be a millionaire, study millionaires. If you want to be in good shape, study what people who are in good shape are doing, right? So you just figure out what you want, go find the best in the field and mimic what they do and kind of replicate and duplicate. So let's go ahead and transition here. So let's talk about good success here. The power of being a successful entrepreneur comes from the knowledge and wisdom that you gain over years. So I know you do a lot on the self-development side of the business, on strategic thinking and preparing on the back end. Is this something that was been with you ever since you said age 12 when you were at Rich Dad Poor Dad? Have you always been into self-development, or did it kind of just hit you real hard after the 2006 issue that you dealt with, or how did this come about where you just became this avid learner?
Well, I mean, like, most kids aren't reading Rich Dad Poor Dad when they're 12, and most people aren't reading Think and Grow Rich when they're 19. And I mean, those two books are definitely huge leverage points in my career. And honestly, I believe that all knowledge and wisdom comes from the Bible to begin with. And then that's something else that I would recommend people get into and understand as well, because I believe all the answers are really there. But I don't know. I mean, it's just something that I'm very passionate about. And I believe that studying yourself will help you put yourself in your own core genius and put yourself in the position where you can do the things that you really like to do, that you're really good at, and that you can make the most money at.
Right.
And like a really good, successful person, I believe, will put themselves in their own core genius. And I think that the only way you can put yourself in your core genius is to study yourself. And I think that, and I'm very passionate about that for myself, but I'm also very passionate about helping other people when it comes to that. And it's not just to motivate you and to get you all pumped up. Like, it's really to know who you are, but also know, like, what you're good at, so you can put yourself in the best situation that you possibly can. But then, like, take that a step farther and then focusing on the people that you lead. And I think, so I believe John Maxwell says that a successful person will put themselves in their core genius, but a successful leader will put their followers in their core genius. So I'm always constantly looking at my employees and the people that work for me, right, and trying to figure out, how can I put them in the best possible position to succeed, but not only just succeed, but to love what they do every single day.
Right.
You know, we as entrepreneurs sometimes, and like the book Traction kind of teaches this, and a lot of your business development books teach you, like, get everybody else on your same page and try to get everybody else to reach one goal. And everybody's going to just jump on your back, and everybody's just going to go after your goal and help you reach your goal. But what we forget sometimes is it's like the opposite. We need to be looking at turning ourselves around as leaders and looking at what is it that my employee or that my leaders underneath me want to achieve, and how do I help them reach their goals, and is what I'm doing going to actually fit with what they want?
Right.
And I think the more we will focus on that, I mean, to me, one of the greatest joys I get is the fact that I get to employ 26 people. And you know, last year at the Christmas party that we had 73 people there. Every single employee showed up. They brought their families, they brought their spouse, they brought their kids. You know, we had Santa Claus there for all the kids. And some of the greatest compliments that I got were from husbands of wives that work in my business that said, hey, you got something going on here that's special. I really like this. Right. And, you know, like, to have that, you know, you're not going to get that unless you, number one, know yourself. And number one, you are what you're supposed to be. And number two, trying to put people in the position that they really love and they really like to be. As far as we talk about prepare, I believe that everything comes from preparation. Right. And the people that are prepared to take advantage of opportunities and then actually take advantage of them, have the guts to actually take advantage of them. Those are the people that really succeed in life. And I believe that preparation is in the acrostic PREP, P-R-E-P. Number one, every day you ought to focus on your purpose. If you don't know what your purpose is, you need to figure it out. And sometimes we don't have a life's purpose. We haven't figured out our life's purpose, but we can figure out what our purpose is for the day. We can figure out why am I on this earth today? What do I want to accomplish today? And why do I want to accomplish it? Right. We can break it down into a much smaller chunk than thinking, we have to know why we're here on this life, which I think eventually everybody should learn what their purpose is in life. Number two, what is your personal responsibility? I think taking personal responsibility is just part of growing up. And it's part of the reason why we talked about millennials, wait until their 30s or 40s to sometimes to do things, because they haven't been taught personal responsibility. And it's part of maturing and part of growing up. And the earlier you'll learn personal responsibility, I went to a private school in high school, and I wanted to go to that private high school. And I had to pay for that private high school. My parents couldn't afford it. They wanted to send me back to public school. I said, no, I will work. I will find a way. And the earlier your kids will learn that, the way better off they'll be. And to me, I think personal responsibility is stewardship. Understanding that nothing that you have is because of you. It's all because of opportunities that you've been given. We have been blessed to live in America and live in like the greatest nation that's ever been around. I don't care what you say. We still live in America. And, the poorest of people in America are still probably among the top 5 or 10% richest people in the entire world. It's really amazing how much we whine and moan and cry about crap. I'm sorry. I mean, one of my 5 family rules for my kids is no whining allowed. And I think everybody ought to have that rule in their office, but just be grateful and have gratitude. And then, so that's R is responsibility. E is edification or exhortation. So edification of what are you thankful for? And how can you change your own life, and be grateful and encourage other people by saying thankful for the things that they've done for you. But not only that, there are people that need your help. There are people that need your prayers, that need you to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm thinking about you today. If there's anything I can do for you, let me know. Believe every day we ought to focus on helping other people and encouraging other people and being thankful to other people. And I think that's what edification is. Exhortation is leading others and being a good leader. And I already kind of talked about that a little bit, but asking the questions, what it is that you can do for your employees and for even your sellers. If you're selling, think about it. We teach this in selling, in wholesaling, right? Try to figure out what it is that the person that's selling you their house really wants, and how are they going to feel if they actually get what they want. That's how you sell. I mean, but it's what you're doing is you're leading them across all along the way. And I think that's the E. And then the P is passion. The passion is growth, and it's putting yourself in your core genius, and then always getting better. Every single day, we ought to be getting better at something that we're doing. We ought to learn something. I believe every day we ought to have somebody in our life that we learn from, somebody in our life that we teach, and somebody in our life that encourages us, and somebody in our life that we're encouraging.
Right. Gratitude definitely brings happiness. And also, guys, you need to understand your profits come from value. So go out there and create the skill sets. If you don't have negotiation skill sets or body language or communication, you got to go out there and learn it. Let's talk about how they can get some of these skill sets, Tom. Let's talk about good success here a little bit, because you've created one of the top masterminds out there, a lot of great investors in this group. Let's go ahead and talk about this a little bit, because this is a place where they can come and get those skill sets and associate themselves with successful entrepreneurs that have been there and have, like earlier we were talking about, people have been through the crash, or they did succeed through the crash, or they capitalized on the crash. And this is where you're going to go meet some of these successful investors that you probably would never get to meet otherwise, right?
Yeah. So our Good Success Mastermind is really for the people that are already doing it, full-time real estate investors that are already and you could be a landlord, and maybe you own 100 properties, or you own several properties. Maybe you could be a fix and flipper and you're doing 40, 50, 100 properties a year. Maybe you're a lender. Maybe if you are, it's for any of those groups of people. And really, we collaborate. If you've read the book Think and Grow Rich, it really kind of talks about putting yourself around the group of people that you can learn from at a higher level. It's not, and I believe you can learn from everybody. I believe you can learn from a child. But in the mastermind itself is we set apart a time once a quarter. We get together, and there are guys in our group that when they first started coming to our group a year and a half ago, we're doing 40, 50 deals a year, and now they're doing 100 deals a year. There are guys in our group that when they came to our mastermind, they were doing 100 deals a year, and now they're doing 300 deals a year. Wow. There are other guys in our group that maybe were doing 50 deals a year, but their net profits were, only $200,000 a year, but now they're doing the same amount of deals or less, and their profits are double that. So growth doesn't always come in just more numbers. Growth also sometimes comes with operations and having a better run business or being more efficient with what we do have. Kind of like what I talked about. We did 300 deals, and now I think we're making more money doing 150 deals. Right. Growth comes in many different ways, shapes, or forms, and it's not just all in how many deals you're doing. So we talk about both sides of that. How do we scale? How do we grow? But also how do we be efficient and and how do we, squeeze more juice out of the lemon, so to speak, as well, and do it the right way. Our mastermind. The one unique thing I'll tell you about our mastermind is we always focus on working with our hands, the thing which is good, so we can have to give to those in need. I want to work to have to give, and I want givers in my mastermind. I don't want people that are just there to just take. I want people that are when somebody has an issue. Every single mastermind, every person gets up and talks about themselves, where they're at, what they do really good, and what are their challenges. That vulnerability in that mastermind of, I don't know it all, guys, help me out. Like, that's the most powerful piece of the entire mastermind and the more vulnerable you are, the more help you get, and the more it gives an opportunity for other people to give and to help you. And then everybody in the room just like lights up, and it's like an extra, that's why they call it a mastermind. It's like an extra mind kind of sits over the room and really like helps everybody in the room. So you can be an encouragement. You can be to other people, because sometimes when you have a problem, you don't understand. When you're telling everybody else, I got a problem, you're raising your hand, I got a problem. A lot of times they think, well, you're awesome, you know everything. But then they see, oh, you got a problem. It encourages other people, and they can say, oh, he's got problems too. And it helps you actually draw them closer to that person that has the problem, instead of, oh, that person has a problem. That's not how this is. And so that's the first thing, is I want givers, and I want people that love each other enough, and they're willing to stand up and say, you need to do this because it's right. You don't need to. You don't make this decision not because of necessarily just money, but also your time, your talents, and other things that are in your life and your family. Really, like our last mastermind, we really focused on giving God time, giving your family time, and separating your life in understanding what your roles are in life, not just in business. And you'll have a much more, and having the right kind. So that, to me, that what that is that gives you good success. It gives you the right kind of success. Right. I don't want to be on my deathbed and have regrets that I work too much. Right. I want to be, and I love to work. Don't get me wrong. Like to me, I love work, but I don't want to be on my deathbed and just have all these regrets about, what did I do with my life? I want to be able to help people and have an impact, and then leave a legacy to my kids and my grandkids. And that's not just money, that's leaving a legacy of doing the right thing, being kind one to another, telling the truth, no whining allowed, right? And one of our core values, even as a family, is to give gifts. So that's the type of people I really want, people that fit our core values of charity, stewardship, growth, and community, and people that want to be there, participate, and really help others. Right.
I think you're doing a great job. I'm impressed with what you're doing. I think a lot of people don't understand that. They see people like you or other high-level investors out there in the public eye. They see y'all speaking, and it's easy for them to say that person up there is on a pedestal. They're perfect. They can't be dealing with problems. They can't have anything wrong, And then when you go to a mastermind like you have with successful entrepreneurs, everybody's dealing with something. Everybody's got some type of issue. Everybody needs help, because it can get lonely as an entrepreneur, especially as an investor. And if you don't have anybody that you can talk to and help you through some of these problems, it can be tough to get through them. So the mastermind's a great place to go and get help with that. How do they get in touch with you? How do they find out more if they want to see if they can apply it and get through into good success?
Yes, there is an application process. This isn't just like a come and everybody gets to go. We do want to vet you, because, and honestly, I'm very particular about who I let in the room when it comes to the Good Success Mastermind. I only want my number one focus is, do they fit my core values? And then my number two is I don't want to put somebody in the room that, it's their first deal this year. I want to put people in the room, like I said, that are full-time real estate investors. I'm not necessarily looking at the numbers as much, but I want to make sure that I know that you are full-time and you're making a living, and that you can be a help to other people, either from the vulnerability side or from the giving side. Because sometimes you have different things in your life that that are just so much better, that I just really want in the room. Like I have a guy in my room that is the president of the entire affinity group, which is REI Guard, which is Think Realty. Like he's over all of that entire thing, and he's in the room. And, I want him to be of value to you. And sometimes people that are just doing their first deal, they're not there yet to be able to understand that value.
Right.
So I want people to understand the value. But I would say, if you want to get in touch with me, go to www.goodsuccess.com. It's pretty easy, right? If you want to get there a little quicker, /mastermind. And then also, like, we have podcasts. So you can follow our Good Success podcast, and you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those channels. I think we're even on Snapchat now. I'm not sure, but anyway, so you can follow us on all those different platforms, especially Facebook. I'll tell you, it's probably one of the biggest ones that we post on. But we put out a ton of free content, just like you do, a ton of great stuff. We're actually interviewing a lot of our mastermind people right now. We just did one a couple weeks ago with Jeff Johnson, doing like just awesome rehabs in Charlotte. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be on TV someday. Let's just put it that way. He's a rock star, but some of his flips are just amazing. He is HGTV. So
awesome. Yeah. So guys, he didn't bring up YouTube. He has a YouTube channel as well. Go over there, subscribe to it. Go check out his iTunes podcast. Leave a 5-star review. As that's very important. It helps it get found by more listeners out there. Let's see. So you also have your community Go-Giver events, right? So you have a couple of those coming up. Is that they can reach those on the same website, or is that separate from? Or how would they find those, the dates of those?
They can go there, or they can just go to communitygogiver.com. So, so that's going to be July 25th, 26th, and 27th. And that could be for the newer investor. My target market for that is, I'm looking for people that either want to learn how to do it in their market or want to come help me do it in my market, because I want to flip the entire city of Gary, Indiana. And that's kind of where this came from. But we're going to open up our office. It's actually going to be in my office. I can only take 80 people. The fire marshal will not let me have more than 80 people in my office. But I will fit 80. Actually, I think I could fit about 120 in my office. I have a really grand, big open space room in my office. It's amazing. But we have about 80 people there. Seats we're already selling seats for this. So, and I know July is a couple months away, but still, I would tell you, if you want to get on there, communitygogiver.com. And then also, we are doing some really cool things. So we've got about 5 Airbnbs that we're renting. And if you want to be a part of that and stay at Airbnb, make sure you click on that and pay for that separately. But we're going to have parties, kind of like mini parties at each one of the houses every single night, and have hosts that kind of, help with the networking. So it's going to be an amazing networking event with investors from all around the country and my local investors. But we're going to basically teach 3 main things. The first day is going to be on fix and flip. I've got Jim Ingersoll, who's going to really kind of drill down on the fix and flip. We're going to teach about construction. I got Gary Harper, who's going to teach about how you do process mapping, how you be more efficient in your business. And then the second day, we're going to talk about rentals, and we're going to talk about turnkey and the difference between active turnkey and regular turnkey rental investing, and then also how to be a good landlord. I got Jeffrey Taylor, Mr. Landlord, who's speaking that day as well. And then also, along with, I have REI Guard, the guy, the vice president of REI Guard, Sean Woodle, who's going to be also speaking about how to insure your property properly and make sure that you're properly insured. And then the third day, we're going to talk about low income housing. So who better than Walter Wolford to kick off that day, and that he's going to teach twice on that day on seller finance and making sure you're protecting yourself with trust and firewalls. And then also, I think I have Quincy Long. I'm not 100% sure about that, but we'll probably have somebody from Quest IRA talk about how to also invest tax free and be able to do low income housing or notes or lending options, other different ways, things that you can do in the self-directed IRA account. And then also every day we're going to have a tour of different houses that we're actually working on. And I'm hoping that it'll work out. We'll have fix and flips in the first day we go look at. We'll have turnkey rentals that we have in the second day, and low income housing. Just make sure you guys are ready on the low income housing front, right? So, And so we're going to do that. And then each night we're going to have, like I said, we'll have different places. And I'm probably not going to do a large setting every night. So it's not going to be everybody, but we'll probably have different people in different spots doing different little get-togethers at the houses, right. Or even at the office at night, just to kind of network and get to know each other. So it's going to be a great time. It's our first event. I actually believe that this Community Go-Giver event is going to, at one point in time, turn into like 5,000 people coming at one time. I mean, it's going to be huge at some point. But this is our first ever. If you want to say, hey, I was there for the first event, then show up in July this year.
Yeah, that's an incredible group of speakers, by the way, guys. That's a lot of firepower right there. Let's go ahead and point out Quest IRA. They are the sponsor of our podcast. Guys, go check them out if you haven't already got an IRA. We're coming to the wrap-up point here, Tom. Is there anything that we didn't go over or any special wisdom you want to share with our audience? Anything you can think of off the top of your head? If not, we'll go ahead and turn it off.
Honestly, I love this, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity for being your podcast again. But so this week I'm spending the week with my family. And I've got a 12-year-old girl, Lily. I've got a 10-year-old girl, Edie, and then my wife. And then I also have a 4-year-old boy, which he started out playing, but he kind of gave up a little bit. But we played Monopoly last night. And what better? I think there's two great games that you ought to play with your kids, and I think you ought to play them if you're in real estate. And it's Monopoly and Cash Flow. Those are the two games. If you don't play these games, like guys, like seriously, there's so much education you can learn just by playing games, and it's fun too. So right. we played last night, and we actually, when you play Monopoly, like you can rarely ever play it in one setting, right? You kind of have to like, okay, you know, after we've been playing for an hour and a half, let's just set this aside and let's come back and play tomorrow. So that's what we did. But we learned several things last night, and this morning at the breakfast table, we went around and we just start thinking to ourselves, you know, what did we learn from that game? And I wanted to teach my kids about real estate because I'm in real estate. And I think Monopoly is a great game to learn about real estate. And it's not super hard to understand, and it's an easy game, and it's fun. So a couple things that we learned. I ended up, and first of all, nobody got a Monopoly by just landing on the properties. So the first thing we learned is that sometimes you don't get a Monopoly. You don't get to build a house. But what do we have to do at that point? We had to start negotiating with each other and trading. So I actually gave my daughter Edie, I gave her a green property. Okay, so the green property, Pennsylvania, which is the third highest property on the entire board, I gave her that property for the cheapest property on the board. Okay, and you might think to yourself, oh, that's a poor move or whatever, but that gave me a monopoly. It didn't give her a monopoly. It gave me a monopoly. And so sometimes trading something that's of more value for something that's less value, so that way you can have a greater value. So what did I do? Immediately, I went and put hotels on those things. I bought 4 houses and then bought the hotel. And I had hotels now on the 2 cheapest properties. So nobody else had a monopoly other than that. So sometimes giving up something that's better for something that may be worth less on paper actually is something that's good. And it's a couple funny things that we learned last night is don't go to the bathroom when you're playing Monopoly, because I went to the bathroom in the middle of it, and somehow, like, my turn got skipped. I don't know how that happened. Somehow people landed on my properties that had hotels on them and didn't pay. You know how that goes. Like, if the next person goes and you don't collect your money, you know? So we also learned some fun things about real estate. And then also, my daughter Lily said, normally I win at this game. I always win when I play this game. But when I play with you, you have so much more experience at this game. So what she learned through that was sometimes, like, it's better to actually play with the people that have more experience than you do, or JV, just like you probably say, JV with those people that have way more experience than you. Give them some of your profits. It doesn't matter. Right. You're going to learn so much that when it comes time for you to do the deals on your own. So when Lily goes back and plays with her friends now, she's going to be so much better because now she's played with better players. You know, like when you go golfing and you're golfing with guys that are, you know, hacks and they're golfing the 120s and you think you're all awesome because you golf a 95, you know, like, then you go and golf with the guys that are in the 70s, and you're like, okay, I'm not so good anymore. And all of a sudden, you step up your game and you become way better. And that's how you get better in life, is by playing with the people that are better. And that's why, another reason why I think our mastermind is so awesome and so amazing. But is play with those people that are a step ahead of you, and go always look to be able to do deals with them. And so we just had a bunch of fun, and we've just been able to relax this week a little bit, but still trying to teach the kids and trying to pass on to the next generation things that we know. So I just thought I would mention that because it's kind of on my heart right now, and just to learn stuff even when you're playing, and play the games of Monopoly and Cash Flow if you guys don't play them.
Yes, Tom's still trying to recover from the loss he had last night from all his children beating him at Monopoly.
No, and we're still playing.
He's like, no, I won.
Oh no, nobody's won yet. But I'm actually a little afraid to play today because it's getting to that point now where like people are going to start dropping off, and but everybody else is finally starting to get on the bandwagon of making trades and figuring out how to get their own monopolies so they can try to get more money when people land on their properties. And, so I was actually afraid because, like the way we play is you're not allowed to buy a house until you've gone around the board one time. And I was the last person to go around the board. And one of my daughters got like all the way around the board on one turn. So she had bought like 8 properties before I had even bought a property. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm toast. I'm gonna, and somehow so the other thing we learned is I ended up with the monopoly of St. Charles Place, the purple, and then the really super cheap slums. And one of the things that my daughter learned as well is like, you can be in those super low end properties and still have the most money on the block. So, right. And still be doing the best. It's not always like what everybody likes to do, but you can still make it work. And those properties are profitable.
Well, you guys heard them. Plant those seeds of growth in your children at a young age using Monopoly and Cash Flow. They're great games. I mean, I still remember, what is it? 4 red houses, 1 green hotel. Talking about 1031 exchange right there. So there's lots of value in these games, guys, that you can start your kids at an early age. Tom, it's always good to have you on the show. It's always good to see you. And guys, we'll see you on the next episode.